This is the Crowdcrux Crowdfunding Podcast with Sal Briggman, where we cover everything you need to know to launch a successful crowdfunding campaign. We speak with proven entrepreneurs who've raised money from the crowd and want to teach you how to do the same. Stay tuned because we're about to reveal how to launch your dream project. With your host, Sal Briggman.
Before we get started with this podcast episode, I want to take a second to introduce you to my friends at Fulfillrite. If you need help shipping out your Kickstarter or Indiegogo perks or rewards, Fulfillrite is the absolute best company for you. I've been working with them for a while and I can vouch for their services. They make it dead simple and take all of the headache out of shipping out all of those boxes, all of those orders to your backers and your customers. If you want to check them out, go to fulfillrite.com at fulfillrite.com. What up, crowdfunders? Welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. On this podcast, we talk about crowdfunding. We talk about raising money successfully on Kickstarter and Indiegogo. How do you do online fundraising, nonprofit fundraising, all that kind of stuff we talk about on this show. And my goal here with the show not only is to educate you, not only to bring you strategies, things you can apply to your campaign, but I also want to show you people just like you, people out there that are coming from an entrepreneurial background, people that are creative types that are successfully raising money online. And I want you to feed off of that energy. I want you to listen to what they say, because so many people, we all suffer from the exact same emotions going into a new campaign. We feel fear, maybe we feel anger and frustration when things aren't going our way. Maybe we feel a little bit of nervousness and anxiety depending on how this project is going, or if everyone's now going to see your work and you're pretty much going to be held responsible for whether or not this campaign is successful. It can be really anxiety producing. So I think that by hearing other people's stories particularly, it really helps you sort of set this in the right frame of mind as you're going out there and you're going to raise money online. So this is my goal here with you and with this show. And there are also other things I like to educate about. So in addition to Kickstarter and crowdfunding, one of the newer things out there that you can use to not only rally a crowd, but also get investors for your company is called equity crowdfunding. So if you've never heard of equity crowdfunding, you can raise upwards of $1 million under the new regulation crowdfunding. This is part of the Jobs Act, which was passed in 2012, but only recently has regulation crowdfunding gone into effect. We've actually seen some campaigns raise a decent amount of money online. We've also seen campaigns raise money like the Elio Motors campaign on Start Engine, upwards of $50 million under Regulation A+. They raised, I think it was like around $20 million. Going back to the archives, they secured $35 million. Looking at episode number 44 here on the podcast. And more recent ones, for example, on episode number 213, I had on a campaign and a business that raised over £800,000 with Crowdcube and equity crowdfunding. So what I'm kind of sharing with you here is that equity crowdfunding is here to stay. It's something that's going to be used way more by companies in the future. It's still just, I think, getting started. We're starting to see more and more people realize they can reach out to a crowd and they can also get investment from that. So if you want to learn a little bit more about that, you want to hop on this trend before it becomes a really big thing and it becomes as competitive as Kickstarter, you can go and check out this guide that I put together for you. This is Equity Crowdfunding Explained, the perfect guide for startups, investors, and platforms. There's a Kindle version, there's a paperback version, and also there is an audiobook. So if you're interested, you can go to crowdcrux.com/equity. If you want to grab a copy of the audiobook on Audible, you like listening to my podcast, you want to listen to the audio version where I read it, you can go to crowdcrux.com/equity audio. That is crowdcrux.com/equity audio. And when you go to that link, you can also, if you're interested, you can sign up for a free 30-day trial of Audible. And when you do that, you actually get a free copy of Equity Crowdfunding Explained. So it's like two birds with one stone. You get a free trial for 30 days of Audible. You can quit at any point in time, and you still get to keep the book Equity Crowdfunding Explained. It is a complete no-brainer, and I will share with you way more in terms of how you can actually do one of these funding rounds, how you can market this effectively, and how you can get in on this trend before it becomes something that's mainstream. And we already are hearing about it, and there's already a lot of competition out there. So finally, that link is crowdcrux.com/equityaudio. Without further ado, let's get into today's podcast episode. Hey guys, welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. Today I have an amazing success story on the show, a campaign that has raised more than $300,000 for Murder by Death's new album, The Other Shore. We're going to hear a bit about the album, a bit about the story, and also some of the lessons that were learned. Adam, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Can you tell the guests a little bit, the audience a little bit about the album? What is it? What kind of music is it? Can you tell us a little bit about it?
So we have been a band for about 18 years, and we are kind of known for doing our own thing, and we sort of just blend a lot of musical styles. But the easiest way to describe us, get you started, would be that we're an indie band. We kind of came up in the early 2000s doing like indie and punk shows, a lot of DIY stuff to start. And then we kind of describe ourselves as like spooky Western music. I don't know how else to, it's just an easy way to get somebody's brain going.
Yeah.
And the record is called The Other Shore. This is our 8th full length. And we're known to do some like concept albums or long form narratives. And this one is a story about basically a dying Earth and someone chasing their loved one across space to try to find them after they've bailed on the planet. So it's kind of like a space Western romance, I guess. It's just a long story told with each song being a piece of the story.
Very cool. So what role do you play in the band?
I'm the singer and guitar player, and I write the songs for the most part until, I present them to the band, and then we all, they basically make it sound good.
Very cool. Very cool. So when you've been playing for a long time now together, how's like the audience built up over time? Is it just people like discovering you, friends of friends, who discover you online? How have you connected with your audience?
We have a sort of a strange story because most bands have sort of a breakout moment or a breakout album where they will, have one song that like takes them up a notch. That suddenly it's used on a TV show or it's a single on the radio or the record just clicks and it just blows them up. And then they're either able to maintain from that point or sometimes they fall off, with the next record. We've had this strange career where we have basically been a cult band from the beginning, where we started tiny and we have just incrementally grown a little bit every year for the last 18 years. And there's it's a really non-traditional trajectory, but we just kind of run with it. And yeah, there's a lot of word of mouth, a lot of people turning their friends and family on to us. And it's really a huge part of who we are, has become sort of getting to know what the fans are into and sort of being appreciative of the sort of patronage of fans and how they can kind of shape what our band is able to do.
Mm. On that point, was this your first crowdfunding campaign? Have you done other ones before for your albums?
So the last 3 albums we've done on Kickstarter, and it's funny because I say that they're not crowdfunded because I think it's a little different than that in our case. In every case, the album's already done. We always say that we pre-sell the albums on Kickstarter, and because basically we're not telling people, oh no, it's not going to happen if you don't contribute. We're basically it's such a good marketplace to put your stuff, your art or whatever in front of people, and people get really engaged in it. And then there's a fun element of, it's like if you make something, if you're an artist or creative person, you are making something that you then have to sell in order to maintain, producing. And I think just the idea of having these different platforms that allow you to, you got to sell it one way or another. If you put out a record in a store, it's really kind of the same thing. This is just a different marketplace, and I think it's way more fun than going to a Best Buy and buying a CD or something. Like in this case, the product is more interesting, the engagement's more interesting. We're offering all this extra stuff and incentives as to why you should back the Kickstarter, and we've done 3 of them now, and it's gotten bigger each time, and we've learned. I'm actually in the middle of fulfillment right now. I'm taking a break we actually box everything up ourselves. So my house is covered in 6 feet of boxes. Every inch is filled as we fill orders for fans.
Because you got 4,000 backers. You got to ship that out to all those boxes.
Oh my God, yeah.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, looking at your first campaign, start with like 180,000 that you raised for that album.
Yeah, 187.
Yeah, went up to 278,000. And then your last one was the best or the biggest, I guess, of all the 3. So congratulations on that, on the success there.
Yeah, last one was 327, and we were thrilled to crack that. I mean, it was.
You talk a little bit about pre-selling, sort of, and also selling this and using this as a platform to get attention. But I also think there's this sort of this element of co-creation. It almost feels like, because like when you go into Best Buy, it's a very commercial transaction. But when you back something on Kickstarter, it's kind of like you more have an indie feel, and you're also kind of creating this with the person, I think, a bit more. And you have the comment section; you can interact with people. What do you think?
Yeah, so I mean, I think for me the most attractive part, and when I say I don't call it crowdfunding, I'm certainly not trying to diminish the role of the people who supported it, but it's just the idea that I don't like the idea of waving something in front of someone's face and saying, "Uh-oh, if you don't buy it, it's not happening." Like we try to stress that, like, guys, this record's coming out, and if you just want to buy it through the normal channels, go and buy it. That's great, but like this is the way that you are going to get the most extra stuff. So you're going to get like downloads of the cover songs that we do as a part of it. You're going to get all these like little stuff like stickers, pins, patches, stuff that you're not going to get anywhere else, exclusive stuff. And we just throw in stuff to people too, just because, like, goofy things that we've collected, and just as like little presents. And it's just it's a more fun way of engaging. And like when people had a question, like, one of the things we sell is we'll come play a private show at your house. And we played this woman's birthday party in Oregon like a couple weeks ago as part of that. And, you can just write a message to our Kickstarter, and that's me answering it. And, people can throw in questions they have about song lyrics or whatever. And there's sort of a fun interaction where it's like, hey, like, here I am. If you want to talk about, like, if you have questions about the band or questions about the Kickstarter, like, it's going to be the lead singer helping you out. And I think that's kind of cool. I mean,
it's a personal touch, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. When I think about the stuff I'm interested in, like, if I was able to interact with, some of the people that I'm fans of in that capacity, I'd be, that'd be dope. Impressed with their really cool work ethic, and I'd admire their willingness to just do the dirty work.
Yeah, 100%. Has it surprised you at all? I mean, your last campaign, it was funded like in 8 or 9 days. That's really soon. Has the success like surprised you at all? The fact that people are regularly buying these products and it keeps getting bigger and bigger?
Yes and no. We've been pretty good at predicting, just because we've done this enough times. Like, we've been pre-selling our albums through our own web store before Kickstarter. So we have like a sense of what we think will sell. But I mean, on a personal level, like, that's my like a professional answer, in the sense that I do a lot of work to try to make sure that these things work. I want people to hear the record. It's a good record. But on a personal level, I'm always sort of ready for the bottom to drop out. I've been able to be a career musician for 18 years as my, primary source of income. And I feel so lucky and grateful for that I'm just sort of always waiting for people to say, yeah, I'm over it. I'm not into it anymore. But it's like this constant struggle and battle of staying creative and interesting and trying to be like, that's going to happen someday, but I'm going to fight it until my dying breath by putting out good content. And it's a challenge, but it's also an inspiration,
Totally. Yeah.
The fear of failure or of not being recognized. It's tough being an artist. People get forgotten.
I think one of the differences here, though, is a lot of creative types and artists, they're great at making the work. They're very creative, get their creative juices flowing. But on the business or the marketing side, man, that's the side that just kind of, it doesn't come very naturally, I think. So any thoughts you have here on what it is that you've done to sort of have these different powerful launches with these campaigns? Because if I'm out there listening and, I'm a musician or I'm a publisher or just business and marketing does not come naturally to me, what advice do you have for those people in the audience?
Well, it's funny because like marketing doesn't come naturally to me, but I think my first answer would be work ethic. I grew up working a lot. Like I always had a job as a kid, and like my parents were putting me doing lots of work and just like menial tasks. And like for me, it starts with saying, okay, how much can I assume as much responsibility for this project as possible? If so, like the more hands-on you are, the better the project is going to go. So like for me, I'm filling the orders. I'm doing customer service. I'm creating the special edition vinyl through the help of artist friends. And, I'm ordering all the product. I'm talking to fans to see what they want. I'm totally engaging. From the get-go, I've done a few, interviews for business magazines and whatnot because of these Kickstarters. And one of the questions people always have is, like, how do you get people to pony up? How do you get people to spend money? Well, and the answer is this didn't happen out of nowhere. We cultivated an audience that, and we gained their trust by being reliable, by putting out, a product that they think is worthwhile, by getting them their orders on time and, fulfilling their everything that they, just making sure our customer service is good. And then, cultivating a social media presence so that we have a way to get the word out to people. I mean, it's all these little steps that take time. I mean, I have no idea if I just came up with an amazing product and was trying to sell it. Sure, I would know how to use Kickstarter and I would have a lot of skills that would help. But it's not that it's, the money didn't come from nowhere. It came from years of touring and grassroots, just our efforts on our parts, but also on the part of the fans who are going out there and telling other people, check this out, or them sharing the posts.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to create content that people want to see. Beautiful art, I think, matters to me, like something that looks good that somebody wants in their home or on their wall or even just something to look at on the computer screen, There's so many components.
You seem like you have, as you said, a very personal touch and also your fingers on the pulse. You're like involved with every single asset or every single part of the campaign. I think that really shows. It's almost like an element of care. You have to be engaged in order for you to actually create something great and something that people are going to love. How would you say this differs from, you mentioned selling digital products before on your site. How does this differ? How does Kickstarter differ from selling something on your own website?
I think the difference is the engagement. Like, if we sell something on our website, it's kind of like it just sort of, we announce it, sale happens, it goes through. There's not as much interaction. It's also all product. There's not the experiences. It's like if we put out, say if I just put out like a split 7-inch with a friend's band, it's pretty simple. I tell people it exists. They order it, they get it in the mail, and it's great. It's cool that they'll see my handwriting on the packaging. They'll see that it came from us directly and that it's not just some shipped out of some warehouse. If you're lucky, it might even have one of my dog's pieces of fur stuck to the tape or something I spilled on the packaging.
Yeah.
If they're lucky.
When it comes to the actual teasing of the product or the fact that something is going to come, how do you do that announcement? Like, how do you get your fans actually excited to expect something that's coming that's going to be announced on Kickstarter?
I do something that I've been finding works better lately, which is just the cold turkey, just like boom, here it is. We've been doing these concept shows at the Stanley Hotel, which is like the Shining Hotel out in Estes Park, Colorado, for we're going on 6 years now. And we basically do like a concert gala there where people dress up and we're like the house band. And I learned from that if you have something that people want, instead of being like everything goes on sale Friday and putting it on, and then on Friday it goes up, I kind of like just the cold announce where you just say, here it is, but it's available now. And I think there's sort of an excitement and a thrill to that. That's fun. I mean, like we're entertainers, and part of the process of being an entertainer is like, yeah, the show's important, but it's also it's exciting to know that you have tickets for something, or that you have something that you like showing up in the mail. It's something you can kind of look forward to when you're like bummed out about something. Like the anticipation is good too. And I think that's one of the things I like about Kickstarter is there's a lot of anticipation. People like watching that number go up. I mean, just from a fan perspective, like I have tickets to go see John Waters do a routine in December. I've always loved his movies. I think he's hilarious. And so I bought tickets in like March for that because I knew that and it's in a city that I don't live in. And I was like, I knew I would need a vacation by December. And I thought, well, this is a great excuse to do something fun. And that's what people do with us. They say, oh, I'm going to go. We played 2 shows in a cave 300 feet beneath the earth last weekend. And people bought tickets. Were just like, yep, I love it. And they're excited about it for months before it happened. And, like the show was incredible. It's probably the most exciting show I've ever played. But like the anticipation is kind of half the fun.
Yeah. It's almost like not even overthinking it seems, on your side as much. I had to interrupt this podcast episode because I want to introduce you to my friends at the Gadget Flow. Their product discovery platform reaches 22 million people per month. They've helped more than 5,000 crowdfunding campaigns thus far, and they have a social media following of more than 700,000 followers. If you want to gain access to their marketplace and list your own product, you can go to thegadgetflow.com/submit and list your project today. When you did talk about, say, social media, though, are you doing things like doing Facebook Lives, or are you continually posting this on Facebook, or is it just like this one announcement that you have, and then it seems like the community just kind of rallies around that?
So no, I didn't do any Facebook Lives. I'm not really into. So one of the things I'm not into is just like, even though I'm totally willing to like do all the work and talk to the fans and everything, I'm not a very like social media guy on a personal level. Like if you scroll through our pages, there's very few photos of us. And like even on my personal social media, which I pretty much never use, I rarely post photos of myself. And it's just not who I am. But what I do like sharing is like the art, like basically all the pieces of art from the posters to the album, etc. They're all made by friends of ours who are artists we believe in. And so I like sharing those because it's cool to be able to partner up with people that are, talented, that can do things I can't do. And so like, there's a lot of, we were sharing basically like an image almost every day, probably like 5-6 days a week while we ran the campaign. And, we would try to mix it up between social media platforms a little bit. We were doing, unfortunately you have to do lots of Facebook ads now because they bury all the content. That was a big part. Learning how to target Facebook ads was, it's always changing a little bit, but like, we had an opportunity that we learned a lot with. I had my manager, Drew, was helping me a lot with this part of the project. And we had a video game, Destiny, use one of our older songs in a trailer for their game, and it happened to happen right while we were doing the Kickstarter. We're like, man, this is awesome.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So that came out and got millions of plays. And so like our managers and I are like trying to figure out like, how do we get people to like figure out that this is us and that we have a new album coming out? And the crazy part is that like, we're kind of calling the record a space Western, and the video game's kind of a space Western. So we're like, people might be into the album, we got to tell them about it at least.
Yeah.
And if they want to pick it up, cool. If they like the song, maybe they'll support us. And so we're like trying to figure out how do you, target. Okay, so we're going to go figure out how to target people who viewed it on YouTube. And, it's just you're always learning. I think that's the answer is that in a technological age, as a creative person, I wish it wasn't so, but we are now reduced to it. Like if you want to make some money being a creative person, you basically just have to keep keep learning how to do these, new technological marketing tools just constantly.
Yeah.
And it's fine. I'm not complaining. It's just like, but them's the breaks, it's like, I learned a lot of new things just trying to sell this record. I wish I could just make a record and say, here you go, world. I'm going to be an artist and I'm going to, just be my artsy fartsy self. But like, you kind of got to wear a lot of hats if you want to
be able to stand out, stand out above the crowd. And even like with Facebook ads, I think the idea of spending money to market your album digitally, that's just not something that occurs to most people, because it's like, oh no, they should discover me, but it seems like you're sort of thinking differently here. Like, how do I get the word out with paid media in a smart way? Or how do I get them to recognize
I made something I'm proud of. Yeah, it's like I made this album. I'm proud of it. I know we have fans out there that will not hear about this record. Like, I promise you that a year from now, there will be people that consider themselves huge fans of our band that will have no idea that we have a new record out. Mm-hmm. And that's just what happens. Like, there's so much competition. There's so much chatter out there. There's so much product. Some of it great, some of it garbage. That it's like, it's easy to get lost in the shuffle, especially when, like I said, we're a cult band. We're not like some huge act filling up arenas. And we play theaters. We're not massive. And so, we have to come up with these ways to compete and ways to engage people and keep them, excited and interested and have fun with us. Ultimately that's the real goal, is like, I don't want to do this if I'm just like selling product. That sucks. Like, I could just go get a job selling someone else's product. I want to make the art. And if I have to also market it, so be it,
You want to kind of create those memories with people as well, I think, and to have those people have good experiences and walk away from that and bonding with their friends, and it's an event. I think that there's a lot to be said there for that relationship that you cultivate and those memories that you make. One of the questions I did have.
That's why we did like the show in the cave. Like the show in the cave is an unforgettable night. I mean, people are coming up to me, and every person I talk to is like, this is hands down the coolest concert I have ever been to or will ever go to. Like,
that sounds awesome.
Just like, it's awesome. Other people will start doing it. More people will start doing that too. But like, it's about like, if you're an entertainer, you got to find a way to make people have fun.
Yeah, it's really about that emotional impact, I would say. I did want to ask you, so when it comes to, this is an area that I'm really unfamiliar with. When it comes to musicians and putting out music, is there a particular app that you should be on? Like, I know a lot of people are putting out now on SoundCloud, also on Spotify. Like, it almost seems like you're distributing your music in many different venues.
Oh my God, it's everywhere.
Do you have any thoughts on that?
So we put out our own vinyl. Our label puts out digital and CDs. They distribute to Spotify. All our little stuff, all our like back catalog that we have the rights to, will go through Bandcamp and TuneCore. Stuff's on YouTube that we're getting like, minor streaming royalties. Some people still use Pandora, and that's still, it's not nothing, it's out there. It's, unfortunately, this, the age that we live in right now is that there's so many platforms and there's so many tiny little, portions of pennies being collected, and it doesn't add up to that much, but it is something, and it's all part of, when we get that royalty check for $100, in digital royalties every once in a while, we cheer every time. It's only $100, but it's like, my wife and I will each get one because she's in the band too. And we'll just be like, we're going out to dinner, it's like, or, I'm going to buy myself this dumb thing that like I kind of wanted, but it's like $60 and I didn't want to spend the money. So, now I have this like little, like, kind of fun money. But there's just all these different places that you have to do, basically, whether you or your label or your manager, you got to figure it out.
Yeah. I'm speaking to the crowdfunders in the audience who have already launched a Kickstarter campaign, who have actually even successfully run a campaign. And the reason is, I think you will understand this pain point most. And that is, when you finally do raise money on Kickstarter or Indiegogo, The hardest part is not collecting the cash. The hardest part is shipping out all of those perks and rewards to your backers. It is a nightmare, my friends. It's a lot of spreadsheets, it's a lot of headache, and it's a lot of stress. That's why I recommend BackerKit. If you have not heard of BackerKit, they help you collect surveys, they help you collect data, and the entire fulfillment process is just so much easier and so many less spreadsheets when you use their software. You can check them out at BackerKit.com and use CrowdCrux for a special discount. So just asking you here, I mean, I think it's unquestionable that you've been very successful. You've raised a bunch of money. People are loving your music. For you, what would you say has been the most rewarding part of the process? We talked a little bit about impacting people, creating memories. Has there been something personal for you that you've really enjoyed with the process?
That's an interesting question. I mean, I do like it all. My favorite part of being a musician is writing something, making it happen in reality in the studio, and then basically, I would argue that my songs are very functional in the sense that I definitely have a bit. They're kind of like fables a little bit, where there's usually a message, and a lot of the themes of the lyrics are, for example, a lot of my characters are sort of kind of like anti-heroes, and they're often kind of a screw up, or they're really down and out. But throughout the course of the albums and songs, I go for sort of a theme of transformation and striving. And so for me, the thing that I get the most pleasure out of is when people will say, for example, if it's a song about losing somebody and like just being the lowest in your life because of it, when I have people come up to me and say like, I was really hurting and I just kept listening to this song and it just clicked for me and it helped me process the death of my loved one, or if somebody related to a character and then realized like later that song is like saying, oh, but this character like needs work, and then they worked on themselves and figured out how to engage with people better. Like
and they see themselves in it. It's almost like they see themselves. Yeah.
Well, like my least favorite device used in music, and it's the number one thing you'll learn on the radio, is songs that are sort of just like I'm awesome songs, where the lyric is basically just like I'm the coolest, look at me. And those songs, I get that those can be inspirational too, because they make people feel good about themselves because they're like, oh, I love this, is my summer jam. But it's like I would rather have a song be like, I'm the worst, but I'm gonna try to do better. That's sort of my theme. Is it's like the opposite of the summer jam.
Yeah. So
definitely. I love it when people get it, and I love it when they can, like, if it's even just this tiny thing that helps them grow. That's the best thing that I get out of this. I mean, cool. It's awesome to see that the numbers roll in and the money, and like, oh cool, like I'm validated, my art is loved and accepted. That's great. But it's a job. Like you hope to and expect to make some money at it, but like what the stuff that's intangible is like somebody saying that you really meant something. Yeah.
That's the part to remember, definitely, going forward. Yeah. So my final question for you here is for a musician listening in the audience who is seeing what you've done with these 3 different projects. They admire it. I mean, that's awesome, what you've pulled off so far. I can only imagine what's in store. What advice do you have, my final question, for a musician in the audience who's just getting started? What would you do if you were just getting started? What should they be doing? Should they just be hustling, putting out content? Should they not even think about Kickstarter at this point and build that audience? What would you say to them?
I mean, working your ass off never hurts. I will say that, like, the thing that when people ask me that question, like, oh, how do I get started? I basically just say, take every show you can. Like, just say yes. Just go out there, just get in front of people. And if you just work, if you present yourself to the world and say, I'm ready to work, you will usually have something happen, and you just need to keep that ball rolling. Like, if you just keep saying, I'm going to show up, that seems to be the thing that is consistent in success. The people who keep putting themselves out there, who stay in the public eye, the people who stay in the eye of their peers and their coworkers, and just keep getting noticed, and they keep getting asked to, maybe then you get asked to support a tour, or people. There are a lot of the reasons bands get forgotten is because they're just not like out there, they're just not like saying, here I am, I'm ready to work.
Working.
Yeah.
You need to really value every opportunity, and you never know also where new opportunities can come from. I know from my own life, like some of the stuff that I've done has led to other opportunities that I would never expect. So I imagine it's
we were like, yeah, exactly. And that's exactly it. And like, for example, never expect, you brought to mind, like when we started this band, we were very like, we were playing with all these indie bands, like very like sort of like artsy stuff. And then all of a sudden, like 2003, suddenly like emo was huge. And we're like, well, we don't really know anything about emo, but this is the big thing. And so we would get asked to tour with emo bands, or like we even did a metal tour, and like, we don't sound like those bands. And so for us, it was sort of like, well, is this even going to make sense? Is this going to work? Are they going to hate us because we're just not heavy enough, or we're not screaming our vocals? Like, and we just said, you know what? It's a show. Let's play it. And we went out and we crushed on those tours. They were really good for us. And like every fan that came up to us was like, wow, I didn't ever listen to music like yours before. But I really enjoyed it. And so we won all these fans from all these different genres. We've played with every kind of style band: country, folk, metal, emo, punk rock, Americana. Yeah. Like, it's just all out there. And that's because we basically just said yes. And like, we were going out there getting paid $150 a night for 5 people, with traveling expenses, got to sleep somewhere, sleeping on floors. We just said yes to everything and just worked. And I think that was a huge part. Our willingness was a huge part of why people kept noticing us, because we kept saying, here we are again in Baltimore, here we are again in Chicago, and just trying, honestly.
Very well said, and very inspirational. Adam, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing all of that great info. Where can people go and learn more about your album, your recent one, and also your band? murderbydeath.com is an easy spot that can kind of be a jumping off point. We got a record coming out August 24th, and you can pre-order it there still. And yeah, that's a good place. Awesome. Thanks for coming on the show, and good luck fulfilling those 4,000 orders, all those packages you got to ship.
Yeah, I got that, and then we go straight into a 2-month-long tour this fall. So it's going to be a doozy. Thank you, though.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. Sorry, guys, if the audio was not crystal clear on this one. Sometimes we run into that, just the nature of doing these interviews, not always being in the same place as my guest and the internet. Sometimes just the audio is not perfect. So I always appreciate when you bear with me for that. I hope that the value it delivered was certainly 10x than made up for that. So if you did like this, if you like this podcast episode, you also like other episodes that I put out on this show, be sure to rate it and review it on iTunes, because that way I can actually see your feedback and other people know that it's worth their time. It's worth actually listening to this episode. And finally, one of the things that I love to do with this show, obviously, is have on many different perspectives. And some people will come away saying to do this, and other people will come away saying to do this, in order to be successful on Kickstarter. But what you kind of learn over time is that everyone has their own different perspective, and everyone brings to the table different strategies that can work to bring more funding to you. And it also is great depending on the category that you launch. And so if you're not in trying to create a music product or a new album or a publishing project, you're trying to do something more tech related, there are very different strategies at play here. So one of the things that I did was I went out there and I interviewed people who have been extremely successful on Kickstarter, and I put all of that education and all those tips and those sort of hidden secrets, if you will, that they shared with me. I put this into a guide, an ebook for you. This is one of my best-selling ebooks out there. So if you're interested, I will link you to it right now. And this is specifically for Kickstarter campaigns. The link to that is crowdcrux.com/ebook. That is crowdcrux.com/ebook. And you will learn about some of the tricks for actually launching an effective Kickstarter campaign. Thank you for joining me. Again, my name is Sal, and I'll see you next time.